This is Let's Talk Business with your host, Marc Ebinger. Now, here's Marc.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Business podcast. Today is a roundtable chat session with the hosts of the show. This is going to be very insightful. We're going to talk about business. We're going to cover things like business as a team sport, with or without you, energy in promotion, which that's probably going to be my favorite one. Life force energy, and not like in the use the force Star Wars kind of way, but in a different way. And then personal branding. I really like the take on personal branding as well. So some really great discussion topics for this one. I'm your host, Marc Ebinger, the owner of Crukis Virtual Staffing, a company that recruits and staffs experienced overseas administrative assistants for insurance agents who need help with policy management, claims processing, and client communication.
And I'm your co-host, Jenevy Sims with the Evolve Firm, where we help business owners create branding strategies to help evolve and elevate their business.
And I am another co-host, Heather Boehme. I am a certified business coach and owner of Onset Professional Development, where we help overwhelmed and burnt out business owners and professionals to get more excited about their life and business.
I really like all of yours.
Yeah, they are good.
They're very good. I'm the other co-host, Keaton Frieberg, an attorney and the owner of Texas Suits Law Firm, where we help corporate and real estate clients with their transactional and litigation matters.
Yeah, I don't know how many business podcasts out there have a brand specialist or brand expert, a coaching expert, a virtual staffing expert, which is very unique, I think, probably in a space. But then also, a business attorney, and also real estate. You guys do both of those. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but they're all great personalities.
It's a great group.
Yeah, it
great
is.
group.
We
a lot
all
of
have
fun.
wonderful
Speaking of great groups, we had the B&I Mega Mixer back last week here in San Antonio. Special thanks to Connected Co-working for not only hosting it, but did you guys like that screen they had back there?
That
was incredible.
That was awesome. I think you didn't get your Texas Suits logo up there, but the To the Moon Moving logo was up there. Did you guys get some good pictures?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Lots of quality content. I loved it. Great vibe from the beginning. Right when you first walk in the door, it was awesome. Set the stage. I met so many people that I didn't know, actually.
Good.
I would say, I probably didn't know 40% of the people there. So it was really cool to go and meet a lot of new people in one space.
Yeah, and plenty of food, plenty of drinks, plenty of connections, and plenty of good time. Heather, what did you think?
I thought it was great. Yeah, it was very different from the Let's Talk Business podcast in a good way, because I feel like the LTB podcast mixers, we do know everybody there. And this one, because it was B&I, it did pull people out of the woodworks that I'd never seen before. And there were people who were just interested in B&I in general. And it was just very high energy, and it was a good night. And I looked great because I had my hair and makeup done. So
love it.
Win-win
Right.
for
She came
Heather.
through the front door, and I'm like, whoa.
That's
It's like
what
I never
said
see her with
too,
her hair
right?
done.
Her hair was
Yeah.
incredible.
So
love
you
it.
just got some headshots done with Matt Roberts Photography.
I did.
How'd that go?
It went amazing. As you guys saw, I got really, really, really high quality headshots done. I was blown away by the entire experience, and the photos are amazing.
Love that. And speaking of photos, of course, Matt Roberts, he did the photography at the event. We got a lot of content, which will help us promote the next one that we'll probably have in January. But Jenevy, what did you think of the B&I Mega Mixer?
Oh, I was absolutely impressed. All your events have been elevated with each one. Shout out to Jennifer. She did an amazing job because it was so polished. It was so well organized. And as an event planner, too, I admire that. I love the behind the scenes. Samantha did an incredible job. She made sure everybody was where they needed to be at the times to speak so that it had a natural flow. It wasn't chaotic. Love meeting new people, especially from the different B&I chapters, and got to meet a lot of new business professionals in our community. So that was just a highlight. And, of course, the food. The food was incredible, top notch. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we're going to use a caterer for the Let's Talk Business podcast as well, because they just knocked it out of the park. And they kept making more food on site. So that was great. Bartender did an amazing job as well. She was on top of everything. She kind of knows what people want, and she's very, very quick about getting it done. So, yeah, if you're out there, if you, I recommend you follow the Let's Talk Business podcast. Follow, of course, the Crukis social media as well. And then follow everybody else in the room here because you can get whatever the next event coming up. Of course, Jenevy is always doing the BPSA event, but then you're also super involved in a lot of other stuff going on in the San Antonio area as well. which we made a clip of the next BPSA event. We got that from the previous show.
We're excited.
Coming up soon. All right, so speaking of big events and team, right? Because it takes a team to, successfully do a 150 person event. But I'd say business is a team sport. There are solopreneurs, which we got into a little bit on the last one. It's how people want to run it. But really, I want to approach this from I want to build a business, not a job mindset. Build a company, something that will truly grow, that you could actually sell down the road. And I think that kind of mindset sets you up to learn so much more and approach things a lot differently than, hey, I just want to build a job that I enjoy versus I want to build a company that I can sell. And those are two totally different processes. So, Keaton, I know this is an area that you're a business attorney, obviously. But how do you approach this concept of starting a business that's going to have an exit strategy down the road? What are your thoughts there? First of all, have you ever built a company with that strategy in mind before?
Sure. So no, I have not ever built a company with that strategy from the beginning. Now, I think that you can implement that strategy probably at any stage, but it's probably the easiest at the beginning, right? When you're setting the foundation.
It's easiest unless you don't even know
that it's an option.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's one of the main reasons for this show, is to say, hey, did you know that this is even a thing?
Yeah, so I think it's different in every industry. I think an exit strategy in the legal industry probably looks different than in the moving industry, for example. I think in the legal industry, your exit strategy is to bring on more and more partners, more and more professionals. You probably slowly dilute your membership interest, but those individuals keep and build the rest of the firm out. Because in our industry, you have really, really highly talented attorneys working for you, then they can go and open up something on their own. The legal industry is one that I feel as though is relatively easy to open up and get started because the margins are so high. Not necessarily saying that the business is going to be great, but you can start it and get going and make money. So I think the exit strategy is a little bit different there in that field, but have been putting more thought into it lately for all of these businesses, primarily because I've just been subjected to the idea that, yeah, you can sell a business at some point and do something else, or maybe even you're still a part of the business, but it's sold to new ownership or something like that.
I like how you said subjected. I've been subjected to the idea that you can sell.
Is that a victim mentality?
Yes. Mark has forced this upon me, and now I have to think about it. But I think it is important to begin with the end in mind, as they say, because I find a lot of business owners who are doing it, and they're doing their business because they know they can do it better than anybody else. But when I ask them, like, what's the end game? What's the ultimate result you're trying to drive? I get a lot of blank looks, or like, what are you talking about? It's like starting a road trip and not really knowing where you're going. Like, cool if you're just enjoying the ride, but like, if we want to go somewhere, we should probably figure out where that is.
And I think that, speaking as an entrepreneur myself, the question's actually offensive. What does this look like 5 years, 10 years? I don't know what it looks like.
It's offensive.
Exactly.
I'm not
We're
taking
just
any questions
still
right
trying
now.
to
You know what I
figure
mean?
it
It's
out.
like, look, I'm just doing this thing.
Right.
I started a job.
And let's see where it goes.
Right?
Well, it is kind of offensive. And what's crazy to me is that if you're thinking about selling the business, you're trying to figure out, how am I, the least involved in this business now? How am I out of the picture, basically? Because you can't sell a business if you are the main product, right? There's just, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to be involved. So you have to figure out how to remove yourself almost entirely, because I think that's probably what makes a business so appetizing to acquire.
Absolutely. And that's why I get it. I get why it feels offensive to have that question asked, because you put blood, sweat, and tears. This is your vision. People are connecting with your business because of you, what you've done to create that relationship. So to have that thought of, okay, now figure out how to hand it off and be completely removed, I get how that would be offensive. And that was something I never thought of when I first started my business. You're so focused on creating the structure. You're so focused on, let's get this working, up and going. And to have that thought of create it and then let go is kind of hard. It's very difficult.
Let's accept for a second that we're going to talk about what it would look like and feel like to start a business with the end as selling it in mind, right? Because I think that's a very mature way to approach business. Say, look, I'm not just building this thing because it's just the thing that I want to do with my life or whatever. It's like, okay, that's romance. Okay, romance dies. I've been married 36 years. It kind of goes through.
Wow.
I'm not saying it dies, but I'm saying
All right,
it goes
Jeffrey,
through.
you heard
Jennifer, do
that.
not listen to this episode.
No, but look, romance is just one of those things. It's a lot better at the start than it is necessarily in the middle, right? It probably comes back strong at the end.
I don't agree
know.
with that.
Okay, Mark might need to take a few lessons on romance.
So, but seriously, in business, the romance is gonna dissipate over time, right? So, but if you start with the mature mindset in, hey, this is I'm building something that's going to not be about me, and then it's going to be something that is systemized and that we can sell, right? It's measurable. It's got all of the things about it, and we can sell. So having that in mind, when you start a company, how should you approach that differently, Heather? You're the business coach. If somebody is like, okay, I want to start a business with that exit strategy in mind of selling it, what should I do different when I'm starting?
So I think I'm probably going to maybe say something that you're not expecting, but I think it's really important for business owners and entrepreneurs to understand what their purpose is, because you can fulfill your purpose outside of your business. And so if you're going to build a business to sell, you sell it when it can fulfill its purpose, and then you can go on to do your whatever purpose is outside of it, or even continue through it. I know business owners who are in their 70s. They still own their business because their business helps them fulfill their purpose. Are they running the admin day to day? No, but they know what their purpose is, and their business is the best vehicle for that. But that also makes it easier to sell, because if you build up a business and the purpose of the business is to get you to a point where now you can go do this other thing, well, then it's easier to sell. Like, get the money for it, let it go, and you can go focus on what you need to. But people don't know their purpose most of the time. I mean, look at all the people that retire and then they don't know what to do with themselves. They're like, I worked for 30 years doing something I didn't like to do, and now I'm retired, and I guess I'll watch TV a lot. So for entrepreneurs, I think it's even more important, because we're building something that's hard and crazy and difficult. And if it's for a purpose, it's a lot easier to get through that stuff, and it's a lot easier to let go of it when it's no longer fulfilling that purpose.
And the purpose doesn't have to be your product or service.
No.
I think
it
that's
can't
a
be.
very important distinction, is that it could be like, well, I want to build this business so I can service my nonprofit that I'm super passionate about, right? So being able to bifurcate that, I think, is really important for the young entrepreneurial mind.
And it's a heavy question because it's very philosophical. Like, what is your purpose in life? What is that thing that just by doing it fulfills you? And it's a sucky question. Because, like,
Does that change ever too?
yeah,
Oh, sure.
it does.
So
100%.
So then that makes it even more difficult, because now it's
Actually, I'd say it makes it more freeing. It's because who you are at
Keaton will
22 is different than who you're going to be at 32 or 42 or 52.
I guess, but it reminds me of like being in college, and I'm a business major at one point in time, and then now all of a sudden I'm, 6 semesters in, and I'm like, I'm gonna move to finance or something like that now. I mean, it's freeing, but it's also gonna cost me a lot more now, and it's probably gonna set me back. And if I just knew from the inception what direction I was going, it might be easier.
But if you learn how to identify it, the skills of learning how to identify your purpose go with you, even with the change. So you can identify it faster and you can pivot quicker. And different phases of your life, you have different, like, wait till you have kids, Keaton.
Yeah, you'll learn
His
quick.
purpose is going to change. But if you have put in the work already to figure out, this is my purpose. I've figured it out by doing these things, by looking inward, by working through these exercises, talking to these people. Then when you're feeling dissatisfied or you're feeling like something's not quite right, you can just go do the things that worked last time and get there a lot faster.
So let's talk about the approach to building out your business, right? Not looking at it as a job owner, but let's look at it as a business owner, right? And let's talk about teams and building out. Heather, again, in your mind, let's just start with you. If somebody is going to approach it with that in mind and they want to implement teams because you get synergy with teams, and you get delegation and you get more time and so forth. What do you recommend as far as an approach to that goes when you're first starting out?
I mean, I always kick it out to the future of like, what's the ideal scenario? That's what I walk people through. It's how many hours a week do you want to work? How much money do you want to be taking home? How many people would you ideally like to be managing? How much, like, what are you doing? What's your business doing? Because all of that affects the size of your team. If you only want to do $200,000 a year, yeah, you could probably keep a 2-person team fairly easily. But if you want to be running $10 million through your business, it's going to be a very different size. And so just working backward from there.
And Jenevy, when it, like execution of services, because I know this is an area you have experience in, as do I. I didn't get into my business so that I could recruit virtual assistants, right, from overseas, right? I mean, I did that part. You didn't get into your business so that you could spend all day doing design, right?
Right.
So team building again, how did you approach that with your business?
I got very lucky with mine is because being in the industry, I got to know who the key players were, and I got to watch how they recruited people. So with that comes the networking, right? When you're talking to other designers and you see what they're passionate with and what they're good at, what skill sets, especially with Adobe programs and all, and the new programs are consistently coming out, then you kind of connect with each other. And that's how I built out my team, was like, I know you're good with Illustrator. This person's really good with InDesign and layout. So when I do magazines, I'm going to contract work with this person rather than this individual. So it's kind of like that matchmaking with the skill set, you know, getting to know and understand who's stronger in what position, and then where you can kind of assign and delegate that work to.
For my recruiting team, I have 2 folks there. It's Abby and it's Therese, and there's a synergy there. And I like the idea of 2 people being responsible for a particular segment rather than just the one, right? Because there's synergy, there's accountability, there's, you know, learning and development and growth that happens there. So I get that on like, hey, this is an important component of my business. I need 2 people there. That's not me. It's just a different approach that I'm able to attack because I know about virtual staffing. It's affordable to me to be able to access it. Keaton, I'm curious, when obviously your business is different in that you're the main person for the clients that you're dealing with, but what's the other stuff that happens beyond you, and how do you approach that with your staff?
I don't know that I'm the main person, actually. From the beginning, when we're bringing on a client, you know, I'm probably the main individual. But after
you're why
that,
they're there.
Yeah,
but like, I'm here for him.
But after that, but I think that's the goal, right? Is to figure out how to make that not the case. So how do we bring in our team? So fine, we'll bring them on. But how do we, not necessarily hand off, but how do we integrate the client with other individuals, other staff members, because there's no way that I would be able to keep up with all of the clients that come through, right? So it's how do we integrate them with the rest of the staff, so that they know that I'm not the only one that can take care of you. Somebody else can take care of you. And actually, somebody else that's going to be taking care of you likely is going to do a better job than me, because that's what they do every day. They do, you know, they draft contracts every day, or they go to court every day. So yes, I'm here for you. I'm going to be here if you need anything. But at the end of the day, you know, X individual is probably going to handle your situation better.
What are the key roles that you have? So obviously you as the attorney taking care of the client's ultimate needs, the apex needs, but then what are the other things? What are your other team players within your organization? Not person name, but I mean, just like job positions that you have that help fulfill those duties.
Sure. So we have an individual who really handles a lot of our contracts and handles a lot of, you know, items that come up for as more of like a general counsel position. So, you know, you need a service agreement between yourself and, you know, between a general contractor and a subcontractor. You know, we have somebody who's going to draft all of those and take care of what we call a transactional, or they're going to form LLCs, or they're going to help somebody else buy and sell a different business. So that's one individual. Another one it's our litigation team. So it's people that are going to be in court day in and day out. And then we also have an individual who's drafting motions, pleadings, and stuff like that for court. Ultimately, for that individual that's going to go to court to rely on when they're in court. And then we have our paralegal who handles filing, making sure everything's on the calendar, light drafting here and there, keeping up with clients if need be, because it's cheaper, honestly, to talk to a paralegal than to us. So,
Is that all? Is that your full team then?
yeah, pretty much.
So if you could go back to the beginning, or did you start with this already in place? Or if you could go back and do it again, starting right now, what would you do different?
No, well, I mean, there's no, if I'm interpreting your question right, I mean, I didn't start with everybody, obviously, but I did start with this idea. And we just hired our another litigation attorney, which I'm so excited about, because that completes kind of this whole deal that I wanted, that I envisioned, having everybody. I always go back to Ford's conveyor belt, the assembly line, and how everybody has their specific part that they do and they contribute to, and that's why the Ford assembly line is so efficient. And I feel like we just added the last little component to it, and I'm super excited about it.
So how many people on your team then?
Nine.
It's a pretty good size.
Mm-hmm.
How many are partners?
4.
Okay.
Oh, so actually, no, we have more than that. We have 10. We have 10.
10 on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but when you started, how many did you start with? How many partners were there?
Yeah, it was just us 4.
4, and you guys were doing everything?
Oh, we had 1 paralegal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of you need a paralegal. I mean, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's approaching business from, you started with a team, right? Not everybody gets that. Not everybody's, when you started Jenevy, did you start with a team or was it just you?
I had a business partner, and we mostly did all the work between the two of us. So we were both on that LLC.
If you could go back to the very beginning, would you do it differently? And if so, what?
I think for our industry, it worked because it's what created an opportunity for us to scale, especially for someone we were both starting off at the very beginning, really never owned a business before. This was, just seeing what we could do together. And it was difficult. If I could go back, I don't think adding a team when we weren't prepared to handle that team, especially since we didn't have the work for the team in our industry, that would have been very difficult to do. I think if we had an actual product, that would be the ideal situation. But with our service, especially when it comes to branding and then marketing too, we were working with vendors. So to have a team in place when we didn't even have the clientele yet, it's always what comes first, right?
The chicken or the egg.
So with our industry, it worked well with just having the two of us at the very beginning. And then we ended up expanding actually in 3 years.
Okay. And Heather, your industry obviously very different, right? I mean, because business coaching, it's like you're the person.
I am the
everybody's
product, basically.
Yeah, you're definitely the service there. So, I mean, you're still, how far into it are you now? How many years?
This is my going on 4th.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's support staff for sure, but obviously, as a business coach, I'm the product, I'm the service. It is my conversation and teaching that people pay for. It's not a super scalable, I mean, it is a scalable business, but it's not a sellable business. So for mine, it's more like long-term, low-maintenance income, which would be stuff like online courses and books, and on the other side, investing in real estate. So it's high income, active income that I plan to invest in, lower maintenance, horizontal income, and that works for me because I have managed a large team and I don't super enjoy it.
Well, and I would think that having a personal branding team would be something that would be important, right?
Yeah, as
Having
I
the person
scale
help
up
you
and
make the
grow,
book.
like PR will probably be necessary. Social media, I've got staff right now already that handle technology and like executive assistant type stuff, but I would want a full-time like social media manager, the type that follows me around and takes the content for me, because that I hate doing it. I hate it so much. But no, it's more like, building the brand than building the business structure itself, right?
Well, building the brand takes a team as well.
And right now I'm kind of building the type of business structure that'll support the building of a big brand, because without an actual organism to funnel leads through. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm going out and, talking at conferences and getting in front of huge crowds. Like, if there's no way for me to monetize that, it wouldn't be great. So right now I'm just building out like my coaching programs and my products so that when I do get on those bigger stages, I have the ability to scale it so I don't have to constantly be working. Like, I'm not going to be able to coach more than 10 or 15 clients on any given week once I'm up and running at that level. So I need to make sure to create the income structure to support that.
Now, as an entrepreneur, there's really, at least in my mind, there's 4 different areas that we have to pay attention to, right? Like, obviously the visionary, which is the most fun. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at, right? I like the visionary part of it. Then there's the implementer, right? That's the actually do something with that vision. There's the connector, which is making sure that a lot of people are aware of what it is that you're doing, right? You're getting in front of a lot of folks. And then there's the data side of it, is making sure you're actually collecting the data, you understand the data, you can monetize the data or whatever, right? An example that I've heard is if you've got somebody who's a great connector and they cannot monetize their connections, then you've got a problem. You've got a lot of spent energy and not a lot of, I thought about this actually because I do a lot of networking, and sometimes there's little partnerships or there's agreements or stuff that come out of people that I'm connected to, and I'm not a part of it, and I'm thinking, well, shit, I missed. There's an opportunity there that's missed because I'm not positioning myself right, or I'm not letting it be known, right? And that's why these 4 different categories I think are important that need to be paid attention to. But back to you, Heather, again, I know we've had a lot of conversations about business and such, but these different categories, we can't be everybody, right? I can't be I think I'm a connector and I'm a visionary, but I'm not great at implementation other than at a very surface level, and then I hate data. So what are your thoughts there about staying on top of everything that an entrepreneur should stay on top of?
So I think recognizing your strengths is big and leaning into those, but also having the accountability to know that the other parts are important and you need to pay attention to them. Maybe not all the time, and you don't have to do them, but you do have to pay attention to them. You could hand off your work to your team to implement, and if you abdicate the responsibility and never check on them again, well, that's where we see a lot of businesses go bad, because people just hand it off to their team and they're like, I have staff, great, go do it. But they don't check on them. They don't have accountability. Same with data. We see businesses all the time with crazy financial situations, and they're making a lot of money, but they're not keeping a lot of money. And a lot of it's because most visionary type people don't like looking at data. They're not spreadsheet people. They're big idea people, which, like, love it. Big ideas wouldn't happen if we didn't have it. But if you don't pay attention to the data, it can get away from you really fast. So I think the big thing is just having those accountability points in place. Who in your life is holding you accountable to look at the data and understand it, at least at the level you need to? Who, like, are you checking in with? Are you holding accountable to actually implementing these big ideas and connections? Whatever point that you are not excited about doing, how are you holding yourself accountable to making sure it gets done?
Right, and that's where the team comes in. So where you say, well, what am I doing to make sure that I'm holding such a, and I'm like, that doesn't work well with my personality type. I have to have, like, Jennifer is my operations person, holding Leslie accountable and holding, Sarah accountable and holding the social media team accountable. But that's my check and balance, is I have something in place.
But at the end
there.
of the day, you still have to hold Jennifer accountable, and you have to hold yourself accountable to holding everybody else accountable, right?
But I would also argue that you can set accountability in place. Now, I'm not saying you can completely abdicate, but I think abdication is a step in the entrepreneurial journey. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to abdicate. Otherwise, how are you ever going to be able to say, I can sell you my business and it'll run fine without me?
I disagree with you. I think there's a big difference between abdication and delegation.
Yeah.
Delegation is when you give to somebody and you check on it. Abdication is when you give to somebody and it's gone.
Right.
You abdicate that responsibility and it's no longer something I ever look at again.
But let me change the wording slightly, in that I'm empowering somebody else to assume that position, role, and responsibilities there. So, like operations, for example, somebody who's going to manage operations, that's now their job. I, as the founder of the company, can now abdicate that the operational person is doing that.
And then do you ever check on it again?
Well, yeah, but that's part of my new
So I call
position.
that delegation, though, not abdication, because delegating is when you delegate this task, but you check back in with them, because no matter what happens, you are the only one ultimately that owns the business, and you're ultimately responsible for literally everything that happens.
We're not disagreeing, other than
We're disagreeing on the wording, because I think abdicating, it sounds like you're just going to give them the
up on
task
it.
and just never look at it
you
again.
don't. Yeah, you don't not care about what it is, but you ensure that there's the right person in the right place to make sure that the functions or whatever those responsibilities
When
are
the
actually
king
done.
abdicates the crown, he no longer runs the country. So when the king delegates a responsibility to one of his vassals, he's still running the country.
And
What are
he
your
still
thoughts
has
there?
the final say.
And he still has the final say.
Yes.
I mean, I see it all the time. People selling their business, they say it's turnkey. So I mean, how is it turnkey if you don't have if you're that person's clearly leaving, right? So I mean, if it's turnkey, hands off, does that mean that you don't have to check in anymore? I mean, is there somebody else that's managing everything, and that's the end, and you really don't do anything?
Yeah, you can have accountability in place and still, abdication is never completely cutting the cord, because you're tethered, right? But
But it is.
Abdication
is.
means cutting the cord.
I mean,
So-
if you're
Delegation.
delegating it, you're not going to be
I'm gonna Google that word.
micromanaging. And that's, I think, what you're trying to kind of point out there, is that if you're going to delegate, all these admin responsibilities, and you're just going to follow up and make sure that the checklist has been done, then, that's the delegation, not abdication part of it.
Abdication means failure to fulfill a responsibility or duty.
See,
An
you're
act of
not failing,
abdicating or
Mark.
renouncing the throne. And you're not doing that. You're delegating. You are handing
And
a
not
task
can a
to
case be
someone.
micromanaging.
made that there comes a time in business when you do abdicate that, even if you are still the owner of the company, that you've abdicated certain aspects of the company because you're no longer involved in those parts of it. But I mean, you still own the company.
But you're still responsible. If somebody sues the company, they sue you, not
Right.
the
If
employee.
your name
that
is
you've
still on the
abdicated
legal
task
paperwork.
for.
There's an
But
attorney here.
then if you are sued and you have the process, and I think it could be for any instance, right? If you are sued and you have a process in place to where, okay, that claim goes straight to my legal department handles it, and I don't even look at it, I don't even know about it, then so maybe we use an example. So property management or buying rentals. You have a company that acquires rentals, right? And then you put a property management company in place. And so really hypothetically, your job should just be to, if you have all your systems in place, it should be just get a rent check, right?
It should be to check the P&L, though, because if you get sued for the property, who pays for the legal fees? The
But what
owner.
if you have somebody in place though that handles that?
Do they still pay?
Pay the fees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they have the
Whoever's paying
they have
for
the
it, the buck
responsibility.
stops with them, right? If you go all the way up the tippy top of the chain, someone owns it. Someone is the ultimate person responsible for that property. And the property manager is going to do the first thing. They're going to fight. They're going to help. But ultimately, who's paying the legal fees? Not the property management company. They don't own the property.
So maybe we're not on the same
I think
page
we're
for the
stuck on
question.
the word abdication because
Yeah, we've gone down quite the
we've
rabbit
done a
trail
rabbit
on
hole. But
abdication.
like, that's the thing.
But look, I think at the end of the day, the whole purpose of bringing that word up is to be able to say, hey, I'm going to set things in place so that I can keep stepping back from the company and ultimately sell it and not be a critical component
And
for the company.
selling it would be abdication.
Well, in your term. I don't know that I
No,
agree
it's not. It's the dictionary definition.
Well, that's that
I
dictionary.
need you to
I don't
stop
know.
using that word.
I would question the dictionary. I don't know. All right, so we've kind of walked from, obviously team building and then getting ourselves to a situation where we can back out of a company. But I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about this with or without you energy thing when it comes to a lot of things. But let's just, at its root, it's sales, right? This is going to happen. Would you like to be a part of it? It's going to happen with or without you, but not in a negative way, in a very neutral way. Right, like the B&I mixer that we had, I would go out and promote it, and I'd be like, "Hey, this is what's happening. Love for you guys to be a part of it. If you want to be a sponsor, awesome." But it's a freeing energy kind of a thing. So, Keaton, what do you think about that approach to sales, networking?
I love it because I think it demonstrates confidence in whatever you're doing. So, look, I'm doing this thing. Y'all are along for the ride if you want to be. You guys are more than welcome to come on board. And if you don't, that's okay too. But I'm going to do it either way. So that's my favorite part of all of this is just that if you're there and that's your approach, you are clearly confident about whatever you're doing.
And Jenevy, when it comes to pitching, a sales pitch when somebody's interested maybe in hiring your company, how do you approach that? And I'm asking, like, is this the kind of energy that's brought to it, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, so mine, because it's more of a boutique firm, people are coming to me because it's usually a referral or they've already seen my work. So they're already primed. There's no sales tactic to it. It's more of, let's get your idea and we're going to create a process and a strategy, a marketing strategy, and then implement it. And it's also that confidence that you've already done your homework by the time you're coming to see me. And so it's kind of, by the time we do meet face to face, it's like, do we have that synergy? Do we have, really that partnership that's going to make this thing work? And so when it comes to business, that's how we approach it. When it comes to business professionals of San Antonio, the event, like you said, it's going to happen with or without you. We are passionate about what we do, which is going to be highlighting our local nonprofit. And I get it all the time where people are like, we've seen you on social media. We've seen all the stuff that you do. How come you never personally invite me? And I love that question. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, you follow me on social media. So you see when I advertise it. You see when we promote the heck out of it, especially on LinkedIn. Everything that I'm a part of, I live out loud. Everybody sees that. So I think sometimes they're also looking for that personal, like, think of me when you think of this. But then it kind of makes it hard because when you have a million events going on and you have to think about every person on your list, it makes it quite difficult. But it is good to also have, your systems in place, like newsletters, the text notifications. But when you come from a broader stance and you have so many people in your connections and in your network that are waiting for that personal invite, that can be quite a challenge.
Well, let's talk about your approach to venue selection, for example. If you're going to host an event and then you're looking for venues, that I think is a good application of this with or without you energy. It's like, hey, we do these every month. We'd love to be able to, utilize this space for that. I think it'd be good for you or whatever. That slightly different application of the with or without you energy. But is that how you approach it when you're looking at venues or even nonprofits? Like, look, this is what we're going to be doing. This is what we do on a regular basis. We'd love to have you as a part of it. But it's not hey, we really need to have a venue, right? We need a space to do this with. You know what I mean? That's the different energies I'm talking about.
Well, with that one, with the venues, we're looking at who just opened up. We're looking at opportunities to be able to give a platform to these new businesses that are opening. So Amelia Social Lounge, they've only been open for a few months. So getting to know those business owners and then providing, the vehicle, which is BPSA. Let's bring all these new business professionals, even though it's downtown. We're looking at, can this venue hold about 200 people? Does this venue have that parking space? And do they have the staff to be able to accommodate our large group? So what we're doing is we're giving you the exposure as a business owner with all our members. So that's one of the key components that we're looking at. But it's going to be very different, not the with or without you mentality.
It is.
More
It's a
like,
different energy. It's
can
not
I
with or
help
without
you?
you. It's we want to give you something.
Right.
It's a different energy.
And the same thing with the nonprofit. We're looking at nonprofits that a lot of people haven't heard about. Like the Spurs Give, everybody knows about the Spurs, but they didn't know that there was a nonprofit behind it. That actually a lot of the players are very heavily involved in and how much they actually give back to the community. So when we found out about the Spurs Give and Chris and I had a meeting with the staff, they were like, I'm sorry, how much money are you asking from us? And we're like, no, we're going to have an event so that you can receive money. And they were so shocked because they don't get that money. They're so used to giving money So for them to actually have the community give back to them was a huge surprise. And it was just absolutely wonderful to be able to do that for them.
I love that. And so I'm going to switch over to Life Force Energy now. This is another one of my favorite topics. But it's what do we bring to the table when we're involved with something? So Heather, you've got a completely different approach than Jacob Warren, for example, at BNI. Jacob's a very subdued guy, so
I think he does a good job of getting up front though, and he he turns the light on and is like quippy.
But I don't mean it as a negative. I'm just saying that it's a different energy, right?
Yeah, I'm loud.
You bring a very energetic, you know what I mean, energy to things.
Nice way to say it.
That helps define our BNI chapter. It's like, because you're the leader of that chapter, it's like, okay, so it resonates, and people, that's what people experience when they come. So when it comes to, being involved with something and breathing your own personal style into it, your own energy into that, what are your thoughts there with, we can start with BNI or whatever you're involved with. How important is your own personal energy that you bring to an event, a business? How important is that?
Well, I think understanding your energy is big. Like, I have always known I'm extremely high energy. I don't know if you guys have figured that out yet. But yeah, I operate at a really high energy frequency, except when I'm pregnant and my children suck the life force out of me. Those are hard years. But yeah, it's just understanding it and then being able to like kind of let it out. I taught Taekwondo for years and years and years. So a lot of my public speaking and my energy, I cut my teeth teaching 4-year-olds how to do Taekwondo. And there is no harder group of people to gain and hold the attention from than 4-year-olds. So if you're looking to like have the type of energy and presence I have, go try to teach 4-year-old stuff, because I'll watch my kid. Now that I have a 4-year-old, I watch group lessons and I'm just like watching teachers try to hold their attention and failing miserably. I'm like, you are on this for way too long. You got to switch it up. You got to change it. But yeah, that's where I kind of learned how to do it. And so it's part of my personality to be very up and bright and high energy, because I literally taught 4-year-olds, and grown-ups aren't that different. That's just really not. And then I also read a book. It's called Talk Funny. And it's about this public speaker who's terrified of public speaking. And so in order to combat his fear of public speaking, he went in San Francisco and he became a stand-up comedian for a year. A year.
Confronted fears face on or
just
head
like
on.
Straight on. And he became a pretty good stand-up comedian. And so if you look at all the best TED Talks, all the best public speaking speeches, a lot of them incorporate humor. So I really like that, because I like to kind of be self-deprecating a little bit. And when I get uncomfortable, I try to make a joke out of things. I have also heard that in a negative light. So yeah, I try to incorporate humor in my speaking, and I think it speaks to my energy too. And it works for me.
Well, what about somebody who maybe they don't think of themselves as very energetic? That maybe they're in a job that sucks, or their job is in a bad place, or whatever. Do you have any thoughts on how they could pivot from that? What they could change?
Find something that does give you energy, because it exists. It may just not be your job, and it might not be what you're doing, but half of what I do, it's business and structure and standard operating procedures. But I feel like more of what I do is get people excited, because I won't talk to people about something they're not excited about. I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but I have sat down to talk to people about one thing, and I'm just not excited about it if you're not excited about it. Who was it? Alan. I sat down with him to talk about his book on personality tests, and he just wasn't excited about it. But then he told me about his book that he'd had in his head for 30 years. And oh my gosh, the light just turned on. And we talked about that the whole hour. 9 months later, I get a link to his book that he had written after 30 years.
That's cool.
Because he just got excited about it again. And it was like, I can do this. And if you find that thing that just gets you freaking jazzed, lean into that, and then you'll find your energy. It's there.
And Keaton, how do you approach that over at Texas Suits in your professional career? All different kinds of people, all different kind of places in their life. Not all good, not all bad, but probably all over the map there. But when it comes to, obviously you're a very energetic person, you're a very positive person. So that probably comes natural to you, but you have to deal with other people's energy, right? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think especially, whether you're dealing with clients, your staff, judges, friends, my approach is I customize my conversation with every single person every single time. At no two individuals on my staff do I speak to the same way. I mean, it's literally night and day. If one person might walk in a room, have some questions or something like that, and then the tone, the things that we talk about, the way the information is communicated is entirely different based on my perception of how I feel they want to be spoken to, or it's just everyone is personal. That's it at the end of the day. I would talk to Heather. I would have a conversation with Heather different than I would have a conversation with you or with you. I mean, that's my approach.
Are you more reactive then to their personality type or their energy?
I think so. Yeah, I'll try and match whatever I think you need, or whatever I think you need. Like the energy might be, maybe it's not great, but I'm not going to match that energy, right? I will tailor it to what I think you need, what energy I think you want to have, or you should have.
Would you say you like read their energy? And
I think I'm good at it. I think that's one thing I'm good at.
I feel like people like you.
I know, I am.
But it's being empathetic, and you can read the room and read the body. Like you get a
vibe.
You get a vibe. I say that all the time.
It's a superpower.
You just get a vibe.
It's a superpower, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I didn't really recognize it or understand it for a while, honestly. But now, yeah, that's exactly it. You just get this energy or this vibe, and you do something with it. So yeah,
do something with it.
Yeah. I think it's important to bring energy and life to whatever it is that you do, because it's just more fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think people live longer and happier for sure.
I'm envious that you can do it on a large scale. Like I feel like you can walk up there and you could have a really, really big crowd, and you could somehow capture everybody's energy all in one, or make it your own. I've seen you do it before when I went and did like a guest, when I spoke to a smaller group that you had. I was a guest speaker. BizConnect. But I saw you do it, and you're able to do it with a big group of people. And I think that I'm really only really good at it on like a one-on-one basis. I think that's where I thrive. But
have you tried it in a big group?
Well, I get nervous. I'm not a great public speaker.
Well, that's just public speaking.
I'm gonna have to go do the comedy club thing.
Because it works the same way, though. Because like you just
night.
like look in the room and you just like
catch a bigger
you sense
vibe.
The vibe. It's a bigger vibe, and you'll have people that disengage a little bit, and you can kind of bring them in or like call them out. And like, yeah, it's the same thing, just different group.
But I think for me, being able to tailor that, like, I guess maybe on the smaller scale is why I thrive, is because it's being able to literally tailor it for just that specific person.
That's what I was just going to say, is you're more reactive and tailoring it to an individual than rather just owning whatever that energy is needed for the situation. You know what I mean? And then broadcasting that for everybody to
I feel
pick
like
up
I
or
might
leave.
kind of force my energy upon the room. I'm just like,
but I think it's always well received, though. I mean, when I'm sitting there looking at the BizConnect crew, I mean, everybody, in my opinion, was engaged. They were enthusiastic, and so it's just a different skill set, I guess.
Yeah, you set
That's
the
cool.
pace. You're the pace setter, right? Mm-hmm. As the MC, and then as the speaker, you come in, you match that existing energy in the room and go. Rather than, because and that's where you may have to be more careful on focusing on individuals, because if they're distracted or irritated or whatever, and you now match that energy, it's going to change the vibe of the whole room.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So that's something that I would say be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Jenevy, you do motivational public speaking. Like, you literally get up in front of large crowds at conferences to speak. So what is your take on bringing the energy and capturing that attention the way you do?
I think one of the things that I had to learn through was that you're not perfect, and you don't have to maintain that perfect brand. And people always expect, like, if you're going to be a speaker, you need to do this. If you're going to be a business owner, you need to look a certain way. And to kind of flip that switch and understand that you're not going to be perfect. Your life is not going to be perfect. So if you're transparent, you kind of face those fears head on. So especially public speaking. Like I am terrified of public speaking, but I love it. Yes, because it's kind of like when I jumped out of a plane, when I went skydiving, you know, at the edge of, when I was on the plane getting ready to jump out and my legs are hanging like this and the wind goes like this. And it's like, okay, are you ready to jump? And that feeling, like that sinking feeling, like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? Why am I doing this? You know, but then when you actually jump, it's that freeing feeling. And it's absolutely wonderful. And I love it. That's why I do it. But one of the biggest things that I had to learn was to be transparent. When you're transparent, people connect with you. When people connect with you, then they will listen to what you're saying. And then they'll be able to take your message and actually act upon it because you've already made that connection, that emotional connection. And especially when it comes to business, when you can relate and actually, you know, share your messages of failure, share those messages of hard moments, then people can say, okay, she's real. She's real, and that's someone that I can resonate with because that's something I'm dealing with right now. But if you're coming up there and you say, I'm perfect, I've done everything perfectly, I've never failed, then that's kind of someone that, you know, they're going to tune out.
And that vulnerability, I mean, it's hard to be vulnerable with just one person. I still have a hard time being vulnerable with my husband. I'm like, I don't know. But to do it in front of a group of people is terrifying. So how do you get over that fear of being vulnerable?
I mean, one of the things is honestly the humor part of it. I'm always making myself as a pun of a joke, you know, especially when people are like, oh, you look great today. How did you dress yourself? I'm like, how the heck did I figure out how to get in this dress? That's beyond me, but we're going to figure out, you know, just jokes like that, simple things, and just being truly authentic, especially when it comes to networking, when you go into these events and, you know, people don't know who you are and they're real quick. What do you do? Well, how do you summarize what we do in like one sentence, right? And so you kind of flip the switch and kind of be like, well, you know, we help the community, but what do you do? And how can I help you? And then that, you know, like you talked about customizing that conversation. And it's the same thing with public speaking, knowing who you're about to speak to, the audience that you're speaking to, whether it's women entrepreneurs, my message is going to be different versus, you know, a room mixed with both. Rooms with
a bunch of men fucking up the vibe.
Yeah, exactly. She said it, not me this time. Or Brandy Joe said it. Yes. We're just going with the vibe. Yes. But I think right now, you know, before the message was you have to be perfect, you have to maintain this image, versus now be real, be authentic, be transparent, and that's how, you know, people will build that relationship with you, and then with the relationship, business follows.
Now, when it comes to, I want to shift gears and go to personal branding a little bit, because I think probably all of us are in here are building our personal brand to some extent, but there's a couple of ways to look at personal branding. Like, is it about you, the person, or is it about what it is you stand for in personal branding, which I think is interesting. You're following a person, yes, but that person is representing an idea or a movement or something like that, which makes it a little bit bigger and not quite so self-absorbent, makes it more, I guess, human. So I'd like to continue that with you, Jenevy, because you're in the branding business. So when it comes to, like, people get uncomfortable about promoting themselves. Like, if they're going to go get headshots and they're like, well, you know, I don't want to make it all about me, or I don't want to be vulnerable, or I don't want to be, that's something that I'm not. I never look like that. You know what I mean? But it's still important because you are representing your business and you're representing that brand or that movement that you're doing. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Well, with a personal promotion versus the idea promotion idea, of course, those are two different approaches to communication. When you're doing the personal promotion, the focus is mostly going to be about what you stand for and what you're going to use your talents and resources for, especially in the community. Whereas when it's idea driven, the focus is going to be the solution that you're providing. So when it comes to the two, it really depends on what your goal is, what the final outcome is that you want. For example, when it comes to branding, like I had a client who has a beautiful wedding venue out in Fredericksburg, and they were having trouble with their branding because they were branding themselves as just a wedding venue. So we flipped the script and made it to where let's brand the experience. The experience when they come to your wedding venue, when they see the beautiful hillside, the hill country. It's not just the wedding, but everything that leads up to the wedding and the day of. So the experiences from the guest to the bride to the groom to the wedding party. Let's focus on rebranding, and those are the stories that we sell. That is how we're going to promote it in social media, is the feeling and the emotions that you are giving to everybody when they enter your venue versus here's a wedding venue. We have the places for you to host these events.
And Heather, how are you approaching that? Business coaching is a lot of personal branding, but it's also what you're about mission-wise. But you do have to promote yourself. People need to connect with you, Heather Boehme, right? So how do you approach that?
So I really like to read sci-fi fantasy novels, like the epic fantasies of like beginning to end, great war, political intrigue, the whole shebang. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. But the story is interesting. Like the overarching story is, there's evil, good defeats evil, but I don't really get invested in the story itself. I get invested in the characters, in their flaws, in their relationships, in the things going on with them. So I think of that the same way with personal branding. It's like, yes, I have a business. That's my story. That's my mission. That's the overall goal I'm trying to accomplish. But in this story, I'm the main character. Whoever the person running it, the person with the most to lose and the most to gain, they're the main character. So I have to kind of follow that arc in my personal branding because it is so freaking cringe, guys. Like posting on social media, if you look at it right now, 2 years ago, if I had seen my social media, I would have thrown up in embarrassment, like no joke. And I've had to get over that because if I don't put myself out there, then how will people know what I'm doing? But I also do focus on trying to make my social media not so much about, yay, look at how awesome I'm doing, but more about what value can I add through this video that I'm making, through this clip I'm doing. And there's still stuff that's like, hey, look at what I'm doing. I have cute kids, but also sharing my kids and sharing my family too. So it's clear that I am a real human being and not just some very successful robot.
Do you have a strategy in place, or are you just throwing
I'm
up?
just winging it right now. I'm just trying not to puke and posting. And I really should have a strategy.
Because it's tied to your business, right?
Oh yeah, with the business I have a strategy, very
but
clear.
the
But
personal
personal branding, that's the thing. As much as I am a strategy person, it just feels very calculated in personal branding to have like a clear strategy, and I won't do it because I've tried. I've tried building out a strategy for my personal posting and executing that strategy, and it doesn't feel authentic to me. But what does feel authentic is just like whipping something together, and if I can't whip it together really quick, I won't do it. Therefore, all of my stuff has to be able to be whipped together fairly quickly. So if you look at my videos, if they're not clips of a bigger class or speech that I'm doing, I shot them in one take because I will not clip-clop them together. And yes, I do have people, but I will not shoot it if I know I have to edit a billion things. So I just lean into that from my perspective, and I'm just going to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall until something works. But
well, let me offer a little bit maybe insight on that, because I've gotten to a point now where I can shoot something pretty quick. I've done it just a couple of times recently and kick it over to my team, and my team will actually then, out of that, it's like they get the gist of what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to announce something or I'm trying to say something, so they can clip it together effectively to where I can just shoot it and get it to them, and then they go make the rest of
And
the point
see,
for me.
That's the thing. I do that for my business. If you look at Onset's Facebook presence, it's different from Heather's Facebook presence because I can, I don't post my stories on Onset. I text that to my assistant and she posts it and bloop-a-doo. We chat GBT, all the descriptions, but my personal page is me. And until I have someone who's so tuned into me and how I talk and what my message is, I'm going to continue to, because my brand is my personality. Like as I grow and as I become a bigger influence and a bigger speaker and I make a bigger impact, that brand continues to be me because my brand is really like, I'm relatable and energetic and I can make it make sense. And I can't delegate that to an intern or to a VA because they just aren't me. Right? So like that's the only disconnect. With my business, 100%. I'm not posting anything on my business page. My personal page, though, I really want to keep that as authentic as possible because if I'm going to grow, I want to grow as me, not as...
But see, where I'm seeing a disconnect is that the personal brand is part of the business brand. So if your personal brand, if it's out there for everybody to see, and there's not a segue into or a repurposing of the content on the personal side.
Oh, but I do repurpose it.
There we go.
I post personal and then it's shared to business. So one post, two things, and the sharing I don't do, but the personal stuff I do. So you can see my personality through my business, but one day Onset will grow. And on that side, I'm looking at growing the professional development side, going into larger businesses and maybe not so much the coaching. I've kept my LLCs separate. Keaton knows. Therefore, if one day the professional development side it no longer serves my purpose and mission, that will be able to be off. Whereas my coaching, I cannot sell that.
So just to be clear, you're repurposing at least some personal postings over to your business stuff.
Pretty much all my personal postings
and
that
that
aren't
makes
my
perfect
children.
sense. Keaton, how do you approach it, or do you approach it at all?
That's probably a better question.
Do you approach it at all?
That's an area that I really want to get better at. I want to be better. Well, from an online presence standpoint, I mean, obviously, personal branding leads to the way that you present yourself when you go to a networking event, or maybe even the flower in your hair. It's that's all part of your personal branding, right? So from a internet standpoint, I could definitely do a better job. So it was interesting to hear how y'all do it because I need to.
So
I need
what
to get
keeps
better.
you from being better at it?
I want to just give a cliche time answer and say, like, I have all these things that I want to do first. You said something earlier, actually, that kind of describes it. You said basically that you want to have all of these other steps in place before you do something else. And I think you were talking about, like, from speaking on the stage standpoint, but, like, you want to have all these other things done before you can get super duper big and have, like, and then being able to fulfill the need or something like that. I'm not saying that I'm, like, waiting to get super duper big. I'm just saying that, like, I would like to have all these other procedures and processes in place before I start to go and push that. Because to me, it's the marketing thing that scares me. Like, if you do it really, really well, what happens if it opens the floodgates and you get super duper busy? Well, if you don't have all of your
charge a lot more for your time.
processes, I guess, you could do that too. But I would like to have the foundation built first, and then really start pushing that.
That's the thing, though, especially with your business. Just put content out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll eventually evolve that later, but let's see what your audience engages in first. If they like the humor, then do more on the humor. If they like more of the educational piece, do more of that. Of course, definitely put your testimonials out there. People want to know who they're doing business with. So a lot of business owners I talk with, especially with their social media, just post. Not only does it show that you're consistent, but it also shows that you are a professional in your industry. And then also, it ties in with your entire marketing strategy, meaning it helps with your SEO, because when people type in your name or even keywords, what pops up? Your social media links. So if you haven't posted in months, then you're going to be lower on that on that Google page rather than having a higher engagement. So it's very important, whether or not it's just a small, silly post like, hey, we're having lunch as a team together. Doesn't need to be, super complicated. And as to Heather's point, the more you overcomplicate it, like, the less fun it is, and it's probably not going to get the most views. So versus the ones you just immediately, take a quick photo, upload it, and you're good. So just start somewhere.
Yeah, y'all are really good at it. I mean, after you go to an event or something like that, y'all always post, and then I just share yours.
Just tell them tag me, right? So you'll show
Well,
up.
that's the thing. People start tagging you. I think I got like 4 posts just out of the Let's Talk Business, the BNI mixer. I didn't even post anything about it.
Yeah.
But you guys all did. So it looks like I did something.
All right, well, we actually got to leave it there. That was a fast hour.
That was quick.
Fast hour.
So,
Was
yeah.
that just an hour? Wow.
All right. Anything left on the table that anybody's like, I wanted to say this before? All right,
I'm sure there's a lot more, but
there probably
I
is.
don't know.
All right. So, but thanks everybody for the discussion. I appreciate kind of hitting on those topics. It's
Thank
of
you.
interest to me. Of course, we're always open to, if there's something you guys want to hit on in particular, then Roundtable is a great place to do that. All right. As we wrap up, a quick reminder to check out our latest podcast and catch video version of the show anytime by visiting our website at satalkradio.com. That's going to be it for this one. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right, thank you.
Good. Thank you.